Now you see Fear the Walking Dead, this is the kind of episode I was talking about. We're going to be taking a look at the second to the last episode of the fourth season, I Lose People. And again, this was just an amazing, great episode. And at the end of this, I'm going to explain to you why, because there's two people we have to specifically thank for this episode. And one of them we have to thank for a great episode from earlier in the season too. But let's get to some of the highlights. First, the whole Dory Strand, the juxtaposition of attitudes with, Strand getting much more positive, and Dory at least attempting to put on the whole cynical hat, though Dory just doesn't do cynical emo well. But I really liked the juxtaposition for the short period of time. I also love the way they handled the reunion between the two of them and Charlie and Alicia. This idea of just the cliffhanger from last episode was just settled by them just kind of waving at one another and recognizing each other. There was a simplicity and a sweetness to the way that was handled I was just really big fan of. Jim, Aaron, I got to get a lot of credit for it. Just did an amazing work. I love the fact that his character was a consistent, as he put it, gray a-hole from beginning to end. And this idea that just because he's that doesn't mean he didn't make valid points, and doesn't mean that he didn't have some decent things that he did. And obviously, he brewed an amazing, amazing beer. The full recipe we will never get because of the whispering he did to Sarah, which actually I really loved. Note to Scott Gimple, maybe we can market that beer. I think that would be fantastic. I loved his logic to Morgan when Morgan was up on the roof. This idea of do you think dying on this roof is just going to wipe the slate clean from making up for past things you did? Because you're never going to know. At least if you're alive doing stuff, you'll still be working towards that goal. And I thought there was a uniqueness to that message that caught Morgan off guard, and I thought that was very unexpected, and I liked his approach on that. And the other thing too is I think Jim represented somebody who was bitten and who was dying, who handled it a lot differently. He didn't suddenly find savior. He didn't suddenly become nice and great and everything. Yes, he did have those saving graces at the end, but even the way he spoke about being bitten, dying, and everything like that, I just thought there was a blunt refreshness to it, I think is probably the best way I want to put it. So I think even that gave us perspective, because in The Walking Dead sometimes when somebody gets bit, it either becomes like with Carl, an hour-long stretch in a deathbed, or somebody does the noble sacrifice, not that Jim didn't, but more of the noble sacrifice and the suddenly change from the devil to the angel. I thought this was handled much more naturally, and I really appreciated that. Alicia really just becoming into her own as the combination of Madison and Walking Dead's Rick Grimes. We need to, in the fifth season, be giving her more action to do, more dialogue, and more screen time, because when she's in play, everybody's in play. She just does a really good job in coordinating the characters and coordinating the screen time, and everyone seems to really work well around her. So I definitely would love to see that, and I thought tonight was a really great start. June and Dory, the walkie-talkie conversation, you have to be cold and heartless not to love that conversation. I love when he owned up to eating the candy and talking about how he was feeling much better now that he heard her voice, and the way she was trying to ease his mind by saying, look, you had to keep your energy up. There was just a sweetness there. And again, I just think it played into the whole idea of just having the band back together overall. I just thought was fantastic, and it was much needed. And I'd like to see more of the band together collectively instead of constantly being broken up, moving forward. When we're also talking about the team, we can't help but talk about the big bad, and the big bad extraordinaire in Tonya Pinkins, who just did more with stares and odd moments to make them ominous and scary than a lot of other big bads and a lot of other shows could do with 4 straight minutes of dialogue. Her stares on board the SWAT truck, we see it from Dory and Strand's perspective, that just creeped me out. Just even seeing her over the map and the way she bled onto the map was just really, really creepy on a number of levels, and I think it speaks volumes of Tonya Pinkins. I'd love to see if there's a way we keep a character around, but I can't see how, especially considering she's taken a lot of hits, and I don't even think she's a Terminator as much as she comes across. And again, but it just overall, it felt right, and I've been saying all along, and I teased in the beginning, but let me say, it felt right because of 2 people. David Barrett, the director, who I think did an excellent job in juggling the mix of action and drama. I thought he created and showed us action sequences that were believable. I think there were shots of the city that made it feel both urban as well as rural, even in an urban setting. So I think from a directorial standpoint, I think it was spot on and key. Writing standpoint, from Kalinda Vasquez, and I want to make sure I get her name right and give her proper credit, because she also wrote the episode Week, another episode we were a big fan of. But this episode, and I've been saying it how it worked, it's because Their characters weren't dumb. They made very smart choices. They made common sense choices. They made choices that were consistent with their characters. They also, the dialogue and their actions were, again, the first time where I felt like there wasn't an old cast and there was a new cast. I felt like I was getting a season 4 cast of Fear the Walking Dead. And as I said last week's review, that's something that's been painfully missing. I feel like the show hasn't been able to decide, which 2 universes it wants to exist in. And this was the episode I think they could use to really show them, this is now how we integrate all the characters. This is how we can really make things moving forward, because it's a transition time. But I think going into next week's season finale, I think we can start building a bridge to a lot better things than even we've gotten this season going into season 5.